the Connect studio. I'm Pamela Largue, and today I'm joined by Tim Byrne from ClimateBright. Tim, would you like to join me on stage? Welcome, it's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Pleased to meet you.
Let's take a seat. Tim, today we're going to be talking about the all-important issue of industrial decarbonisation, but before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit more about ClimateBright and how it fits in with Babcock and Wilcox and how you're supporting with industrial decarbonisation?
Well, firstly, thank you once again for having me here today. I really look forward to sharing B&W's journey down this path to decarbonization. And B&W, our goal is to reduce carbon every day through B&W innovation. And our company has, through its 155 years, established a legacy of being able to develop solutions, working with institutes and universities to deliver technology from R&D right to commercial deployment. And that is no different today with our ClimateBright technologies. This suite of technologies is part of our clean energy platform. And these technologies provide for us to support industries to decarbonize, hydrogen generation, as well as other renewable type technologies. So today I'm specifically talking to industry and how our applications, but that is part of where we are today with this technology. It's very interesting we talk about industry and decarbonization because industry is a very hard to abate sector, and that's a common name used for it. And the reason why it is so challenging is because the complexity of the emission sources. The source doesn't come from one area. It comes through process, it comes through energy generation. So it's very difficult and expensive to do, but we have developed solutions that give our customers flexibility with our products that can help them get to that point of their process. And the other thing too, when we talk about emissions and fossil fuels, one of the other important things to remember is that for a lot of these processes, natural gas is actually a feedstock for the process. So it's a very complex problem with industry to work on.
I can imagine. And it does seem to be it's coming to the fore. It seems to be becoming more of a priority at this time. And would you say that industry is waking up to the fact that there is an urgent need for action in order to reach decarbonisation goals? I mean, they've got a big role to play.
My sense is that they realize they have an important role to play. When you look at the actual net zero goals that have been established, by 2030, the goal is that we should have reduced the equivalent of 50 gigatons of CO2 by 2030, which, whether we're on path to meet that or not, was the goal. And when you look at the industry sector, they generate now 38 gigatons of CO2 a year in their process. So they're obviously a major player in that solution. And what is happening now is there's a number of forces in play. There's governmental forces that are coming out with carbon taxation and other programs to stimulate them taking action. And also as well, there's a lot of investor and consumer activism in the market. So consumers are demanding that they get products from sustainable companies. Companies publish their reports saying what they're going to do and how they're going to achieve it and measure it. And even in the investment world, you look now at ESG sustainable funds, they're in north of $55 trillion globally. So when you look at all this activity, it's moving these companies to move forward to get to the point where they can deal with the emissions.
So clearly the pressure is on. Would you say that there are any specific challenges that are hindering progress? Would you say it's an expensive process to decarbonize? Perhaps that's one of the key challenges?
Yeah, so I'm going to divide this up in a couple of pieces to answer that question. So first of all, when it comes to CO2, you can remove it, you can avoid it, you can reduce it, you can use it for beneficial use, or you can store it. So primarily your strategies are going to evolve around those areas. And given that this sector over the next decade is still expected to grow and the energy demands for industry are going to grow, you have to look at what can be done to move forward and stimulate action in the area. So I've really framed what I see our clients dealing with and making decisions to move forward in three buckets. One is the financial model. Another one is the technical solutions. And the last one is actually infrastructure to deal with the CO2. So when I look at the financial part of this, it breaks down to a number of areas. What's government programs doing to stimulate the industry to move forward? Besides carbon taxation, are they providing production and investment tax credits that will incentivize companies to move forward? Because as you said, this is a very expensive investment. And when you look at global stage, eventually that cost has to go somewhere, and it's going to go in the products and services to consumers. And when companies are competing globally and you're competing against people that don't put in these solutions, I mean, it puts them at a bit of a disadvantage. So the government plays a very big role in all this, as well as the financial markets themselves. Capital being open to the industry to be able to invest in developing technology, bringing technology from pilot to demonstration level, and being able to accept additional risk to support those projects are a key part of it. And then carbon markets. So I was at COP27 this year, and there was a lot of work done on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on voluntary carbon credits. Well, they've moved along to start looking at how to get unification globally on carbon credits. They're also looking at how to classify other types of greenhouse gas emissions like methane as a credit, so that they can establish a greenhouse gas credit rather than just CO2. So there's movement in this market, and that also is a strategy companies have to work at. And then when you look at a financial model for a client, you know, what's the best solution to them that we can provide as technology providers? So you might hear things carbon capture as a service, where the provider will do the full turnkey, capture the carbon, store it, transport it, and store it for the client at so much dollars per ton. So all these things play into those models that customers have to look at when they're looking at investing. And then we look at the actual technical solutions themselves. And from a technical point of view, most industrial processes demand a lot of energy, heat, and steam. All right? And to that particular end, it's expensive to invest. And in order to integrate the technology into the process it can be quite challenging. Because if I took an example for a waste energy facility, you know, a byproduct of the energy from waste energy gets used in combined heat and power plants and or district heating. When you go to put in a solution to capture carbon, and one of the more prominent solutions these days is a solvent-based scrubbing system on a waste energy plant, that system uses a lot of energy, steam as well. So how do you get that technology integrated with the process so they can still meet their operational obligations? And then on top of that, you can't just send the flue gas from your process into this scrubbing system. It has to be scrubbed itself because constituents like sulfur and nitrogen are detrimental to the process. So all these things have to be taken into account. Now, at B&W, we're fortunate because we can do all those things. We understand we're an OEM for waste energy facilities. We understand how to integrate systems. We understand how to treat flue gas. But my point being, when clients are looking at solutions, that it's very complicated and technically challenged, and it takes a lot of work to do it properly. And then finally, infrastructure. So when we're working with our clients and they've decided they want to catch their CO2, at the end of the day, we can give you technology to capture, but what are we going to do with it? And this is a very big issue that requires governmental and private company investment and working together, because you know, are you going to make centralized hubs? What's the system of doing with the CO2? Where's it going to go? Where's that sequestration site located? How can you make it economical, efficient? So there's a lot of work in those areas that have to be done in order to deal with that issue with the technology itself.
Thank you, Tim. A lot of complex considerations involved in this topic. If I can ask perhaps our final question, you are seeing a variety of solutions that are attractive. You know, you mentioned carbon capture and storage. You know, are there perhaps hybrid solutions, or, you know, Is hydrogen becoming more popular? If you can maybe comment on some of the tech solutions that you're seeing.
Well, there are a lot of solutions being generated, and it's a fascinating question for us because you're looking at, and the client needs to look at technologies that give them versatility and scalability, as well as affordability in their financial models. And what is the real fascinating dynamic in the market right now is as we go forward, how companies are going to be able to start integrating multiple technologies to solve the question. So an example, if you have an installation of electrolyzers that make low carbon intensity hydrogen, it also produces a lot of oxygen. That oxygen can go over and be used in an oxycombustion process to make energy from, let's say, biomass, which is, if you sequester that carbon, is a net negative process. So the technology field and the development and investment over this next decade into all these different solutions, I think in 2030 we're going to look back and see like a massive injection of technology into the market to solve the problem. The energy transition phase is decades long, and we're really still at the beginning of it. And so I think there's going to be a lot of different technologies come in. Companies looking to fuel switch and use hydrogen rather than fossil fuel where it's possible. So there's a lot of different directions I think we're going to go in the technology sphere.
It's a really exciting space, and I believe we do have time for one last question. In terms of what's exciting you at the moment, in terms of research and development, can you talk a little bit about what you see as the future of industrial decarbonisation?
Well, I believe there's going to be breakthrough technologies that are coming up, and one of them is with Babcock now called chemical looping. It's called Bright Loop, where you can take a gas or a solid fuel and make hydrogen capture CO2, which is, you know, there's gases out there that can make hydrogen, but not necessarily make it from solid fuels. So that's an example of developing technologies. And when I look at some of the funding programs going on by governments in all areas, what they're looking at how to mitigate CO2 and the strategies, I'm just generally fascinated by all the different applications people are making, and they're making them so that they're, as I said before, they're scalable. The amount of CO2 coming off a food processing plant is different than a cement plant, and how they use it. And for, I'm really excited about industries that'll be able to use the CO2 for beneficial use. So in food industries, they pay a great deal right now for CO2 for food processing. They can capture their own CO2, process it, and use it themselves. So I think companies finding a way to make beneficial use, their development of fuel switching and technologies they can use within their process, and the general overall improvement in efficiency of the processes to reduce energy needs are going to be some of the fascinating dynamics that go forward besides, outside of CO2, the whole renewable energy revolution that's going to take a lot of the carbonization, and that'll help because, you know, probably 40–50% of the energy in an industrial process could be electrified, but the balance of it can't. So I think those are the sort of the exciting things I see coming down the line.
Tim, it really is an exciting space, and we certainly will be keeping an eye on it. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I'd also like to thank our viewers. Please feel free to join the community and the conversation, and catch all the Enlit Europe Connect videos on enlit.world. Thank you.
Thank you.